want to thank everyone for coming today. We are here, of course, to talk about our city's efforts with respect to building our Gateway Center. And this Gateway Center, by way of history, of course, comes from a bond issue that was voted on by the voters in November. We have roughly $14 million that we're looking to invest in a 24/7 facility that is low barrier to entry and that is centrally located within Albuquerque. That is kind of our primary mandate, if you will, from the voters. Now, a couple of things that I want to share just in terms of background. I know a lot of folks know this, but just want to reiterate that this is only one part of our strategy around homelessness. Another huge piece is what we're doing with housing vouchers. And we currently use that model. Anyone who is ready for housing with supportive services in housing, we try and do that right away. So this is for a different set of the population. This is for folks who are not housing ready right away or who aren't connected yet, so that we can connect them to housing and services. So this is truly meant to be a gateway where people are essentially sorted out in terms of the services they need, behavioral health or mental health, and then they're sent out to the existing providers, many of which are already funded by the city and already doing a lot of good work. And lastly, I want to remind folks that the reason this came up is because this issue right now is a huge problem. There is nowhere in Albuquerque you can go with no questions asked on a weekend, for example. So we have this challenge where we have all these wonderful providers doing a lot of good things, but they all have certain criteria. Some of them might be religious, some of them might be gender, so it's just a men's shelter, women's shelter. Some of them also can't take you if you're high or drunk, and we know that's an issue with some of the homeless community. There's all sorts of issues. There's also geographic transportation challenges. And so we've got to have one place where people can go where there's no gate. They can just come in and then get the services, get connected to the services they need. That's what this is about. And we know that if we do not fix this problem, there is no way the homelessness challenges in our city are actually going to get better. So we have lots to do, but this is a critical gap right now that we're trying to close. So with that, of course, as we shared yesterday in the council committee and the county commission committee, we have narrowed our research down from originally sort of hundreds of sites down to 3 possible sites that actually will work given the challenges that I explained earlier. So these sites, and I'm going to go into each one, and the point of this morning's event is really to talk also about the next steps. So I'm going to touch on each one of these, and then of course we're going to take questions, but we're also going to hear a little bit from some folks in the faith community about the imperative to get this done for our city. Now, of course, one is behind us. This is out on those hills out there, right on the other side of them, is one of our top 3 choices of where we could put this. And I think there's a couple of things to highlight. I want to note this is nowhere near campus, as you can tell by looking around. It obviously is UNM land, but it is very far from campus. And so we want to just kind of debunk that myth in terms of the connection to the university is about the medical facilities and their land, and we certainly respect that. But it's very different than students in the duck pond and things like that. Now, also the benefits of this are very, very basic. It's close to the Big I, so we're close to all transit, to all things, all the service providers that we need. I think the other obvious aspect is it's empty land, so we can build a facility that we can design in the best way to actually make it welcoming and accommodating, and also have the lowest impact on the surrounding area. That's a big benefit to this piece of land. Also, this land is publicly owned, obviously by the university, but technically it's taxpayer owned. And that gives us a chance to hopefully get it for a low price or nothing. So this helps us with our budgetary constraints in a big, big way. As you can see also, there's plenty of existing ingress and egress, so we can work out a shuttle system. In all of these programs, we want to do everything we can to minimize any pedestrian traffic. The point of part of this is to get people in and out through our shuttle system so that we don't have pedestrian homeless traffic. Now, a couple of things about this site. This is not the city's site, and if the UNM community is not interested in sharing it, then this will be off the table. So just want to remind folks that we now have to move to the next step with each of these 3 sites. and I'll speak to the next steps. But the next step here is to really see if this is feasible from the UNM team. And we're working with them, we're in discussions with them, we're actually even open to other ideas or smaller facilities or maybe different facilities of different types. We're open to all of that. We just know this is one of our top 3 choices, and now we're excited to work with them in essentially a negotiation stage to see if we can come up with something that works for both of us. It might happen or it might not. Those are both 50% likely options probably. Now, the second site is the former Loveless out on Gibson. This site, of course, is within our budget because the building is already there and the building is in pretty good shape. And it has vacancy. Again, it has access to sort of public transit, but also, roads and ingress and egress and so forth. It also is near some services that are out there, in particular the VA. Now, this has a lot of benefits because it's an existing building. So we might be able to move faster, and it might also be cheaper. But here again, the next step is about a negotiation. We are in discussions with the owner of the property, and the question is the price and how much do we want to buy the whole property or just lease part of it. So we're going to go through all of those iterations, and then we'll see how that stacks up to what is available or not available at the UNM site. So again, the challenge now for us is to really pencil this stuff out. I think we know what to do, we know what the problem is and the challenges that we want to solve in these facilities. But now we have to think about price. And we have to think also about time to actually completion. We know this is an urgent need in our city, so we do not have the luxury of sitting around for 5 years trying to figure out how to do this. We need to do this now for everyone who is sleeping out on the streets tonight. Now, the third location is, of course, the area around Coronado Park. And once again, this site has its own story. We know that historically it has essentially been the gateway center by default because we don't have one. This is where all of the service providers are connected informally with many folks who are experiencing homelessness, including our own West Side shelter, which I want to remind folks currently houses about 300 people a night, including 75 families. So there is no dispute as to the need for a large facility to be able to take on hundreds of folks because we already have one that's costing us over $1 million just to bus people back and forth from out on the west side. So the Coronado site, the challenges, well, first the benefits. The city does own a lot of that land, so this is a good thing for us. We can again move faster, cost less. Downside is there is a road that splits our 2 pieces of land. You might notice when you drive through it. We'd have to figure out what to do with that road, possibly condemn it, and still the site is still a little small, so we probably would have to buy a couple of other parcels around that land. So again, the challenge with Coronado, just from a feasibility perspective, is that it probably will take longer, and we have to cost out purchasing that additional land. Now, all of these also have pros and cons with respect to communities that they may impact. Obviously, we respect that if a facility's here, it might have an impact on master plans with respect to UNM medical facilities. Certainly understand that aspect of it. We also know this is relatively far from neighborhoods, which makes it a little bit more favorable on that front. Loveless, again, an existing medical facility area, so that's a good thing, but there are also neighborhoods close by there as well. In fact, much closer than here. And of course, Coronado, this is the biggest challenge. It's not anyone's best idea to add more into a neighborhood that is already so stressed. I don't really think that is a good idea either. But I know this, these are the only 3 sites that we believe will work, and we have to do this on one of these sites as a city. And so that's what we're going to be negotiating for going forward. Now, let me, I think, just end with this as I transition to some of our faith leaders. It's important that we also separate some facts from fear. The homeless population is a diverse population in every way, just like the population of our state and of our city. And that does mean that some individuals are experiencing mental illness and behavioral health challenges. And in fact, sometimes there are interactions that can lead to violence with respect to homeless people. We understand that. But we know that is a very, very small slice of this population. And it does no one justice, both as humans or as a city, to try and demonize homeless folks as all being part of a criminal element. That is absolutely not true. And we want to remind folks that the reason why we are doing this is to get these folks help and get them off the streets. So I actually believe this will reduce the burden of any community that it's in. That is exactly why we're doing this. And I think that's also what people understood when they were voting for this facility. So we want the community and everyone to be a part of the solution, not just talk about the challenges. And that's what these next 3 sites give us the opportunity to do. So with that, I'm going to introduce Pastor Alarid for some remarks. Pastor, come on up.
In order to combat any human crisis like childhood hunger or homelessness, you need 4 things. You need dedicated leadership, you need financial resources, you need a compassionate community, and you need the right strategies. And I'm happy to say that here in Albuquerque, we have all 4 of those. And I'm grateful that we have a mayor who has never wavered from his commitment to serving the less fortunate. So, Mayor Keller, thank you for your leadership, for your compassion, for your commitment to the homeless community. I'm grateful to the city of Albuquerque, to our governor, to our state legislators who allocated the financial resources we need to build a permanent homeless shelter. Listen, homelessness is not an issue that affects a certain segment of our population. Homelessness affects all of us. Every person experiencing homelessness is somebody's son or daughter, somebody's father or mother, somebody's brother or sister. And the only question that matters is this: if this was your son or your daughter, would you want them to have a safe place to stay? Would you want them to have food to eat and access to the resources and services they need? Of course you would. My brother John was one of the many people who for years lived homeless on the streets of Albuquerque. So for me, this is a very personal issue. Gustavo Gutierrez said, "Poverty is not a fate, it is a condition. It is not a misfortune, it is an injustice." A compassionate society built on the strength of people from all walks of life and all faith traditions understands that when we care for the homeless, we are caring for all of us. Jesus Christ said, "When I was hungry, you fed me. When I was thirsty, you gave me something to drink. When I was homeless, come on, you gave me a place to stay. When I was sick, you cared for me. When I was in prison, you visited me." Together as one Albuquerque, we will build the shelter, this Gateway Center. We will care for the less fortunate. We will elevate people out of poverty, and we will make our city safer and stronger for all of us. God bless you.
Thank you so much for that, Pastor, and especially poignant message during Lent. Even so, thank you for that. And we also want to invite Pastor Mansfield up to share a few words.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. And we had a ministry called God's Warehouse, where we touch the lives of 400 to 500 people a day with meals, clothing, some health care. We also provide recovery programs like 12-step programs for them to break out of bondages that they're in. The facility has now partnered with the city as a pickup station for the Westside Shelter. We started off just about a few months back, and when we started, it was really amazing. 8 people had died in our community that winter. This year, we only had 2. And it really was a big effort of the city partnering with us to make it a pickup station for the Westside Shelter. More and more people are embracing the shelter life. They're seeing that they're getting care, they're getting shelter, they're getting provisions, and they're getting the help that they need, resources that are provided that they really are ignorant to. So we are very, very excited about what is taking place here in Albuquerque to provide shelter and care for the homeless. I know we're committed to it, but we're committed to partner with the city and stand behind our mayor and the leadership to say thank you for what they're doing to impact the brokenhearted and families of our city. Thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing that perspective. And before we take a few questions, let me just also mention some of our other partners. I want to remind everyone we do have a homeless advisory group. There are many members here with us today who are on that. Even ranging from all our chambers of commerce have also been in discussions with this. I think we outlined last night the community input process that we've taken, both the thousands of people who responded to surveys, the multiple forums we've had, including ones with homeless folks, and outreach to the neighborhoods in the areas that possibly could be impacted by these sites. So I also want to mention that the county, we're in discussions with the county as potential partnership too in different ways. And so as we go forward, whether it's the owners of Loveless or it's UNM, we also want to understand how we fit together so that when we actually do this, we have a sort of unified approach to dealing with homelessness, especially behavioral health. And so we are just want to let folks know we're going to be working on that in the next few months as well.